To our webinar focusing on sports social enterprises. The webinar is organized by World Learning and the Digital Communication Network, and it's part of the International Sports Initiative, a program of the US Department of State Sports Diplomacy Division. I'm your host, Vlad Spencer. I'm based near Washington, D.C. As you could see, I have a kind of a natural background, so hopefully you'll see a little bit of weather near Washington, D.C. And I'm moderating this webinar with my colleague, Anna Tadeusian, who's in Yerevan, Armenia. The idea of this webinar started a few years ago, probably 2-3 years ago, when we did an exchange program. This is what we do when life is normal. We do exchange programs sponsored by the State Department in Colombia, in Latin America. And that exchange was called Sports Factory. And what we found out during the exchange was something that is evident to all of you. The fact that there's tremendous sports talent and people who understand how important sports is for youth development, for education, what is the social value of sports. But mostly at the beginning of their careers, when they're trying to do something, to build something, they do not have the know-how to create, develop organizations, social enterprises, businesses that can function and be sustainable. And this is what Sports Factory, that exchange that I was telling you about, tried to achieve. Help the participants acquire the skills in order to fulfill their dream. And their dream was to use sports for social good. This webinar has more or less the same idea. The title is probably suggestive in that regard. It's a business plan for your dream. And we thought that it might be useful for our audience, which is global, to gather a panel that is global. So we have, representatives from the United States, from Europe, from Latin America, from Africa, from Asia, everybody, gathered here to share with you, to brainstorm on best ways to achieve our dreams, which is basically using sports for social good, which is at the same time, a goal for World Learning and for Sports Diplomacy, the division of the State Department that I mentioned to you a little bit earlier. So this is kind of the conceptual framework of this webinar, and we are very grateful to the speakers. We are very grateful to you, all the audience, for being here with us. Now, a few words about kind of the rules of engagement on Zoom. Fortunately or unfortunately, we all know a lot about Zoom these days and about WebEx. That is a very engaging platform. Zoom gives you an opportunity to participate. There's a chat room. And our hope that in the chat room, you are going to introduce yourself, you are going to maybe network, you are going to put links to initiatives that are worthwhile for the participants, make comments. But most importantly, we hope that you are going to ask questions in relation to what we are going to be discussing soon. There's a tremendous wealth of experience in this group of speakers, and there's a tremendous wealth of experience among the audiences. And we want to take full advantage of this. These webinars are not meant only for kind of knowledge sharing, they are networking mechanisms. So our hope is that we are going to stay together as a network and will achieve great things together for a very, very good cause. That being said, again, thanks for participating. Anna, you have the floor for the first interventions during this webinar.
Thank you, Vlad. Thank you, speakers, and thank you all the participants for joining us today. And now we'll try to find out the model, the universal model for our dream, how we build a good social network with the sports. So the first speaker and the first question that I want to ask is, ask all the speakers to tell your personal stories in relation to sports for social good, and tell us a little bit how you build your programs. And first speaker is Rekha Dey, Community Development Specialist, founder Rekha Dey and Associates from India. Rekha, hello and welcome.
Please hello. Good evening to all, and namaste from India. The topic is pretty interesting because I have been in this sector for close to 12 years, and I'm an entrepreneur since 2015. And I would like to start by saying that the experience of being an entrepreneur is actually it's a journey of experiences. And what drives you is just your passion and understanding of the sector that you have in your respective country. And something that I have continuously falled back is the power of having knowledge of the sector where you are. So when I started in 2015, I was fortunate to have had a background previously of about 10 years in managing different kinds of programs in sports. And I was also associated with the Australian government as the national coordinator of their Australian sports outreach program in India. And before that, I was the head of advocacy and communications for Magic Bus. And that gave me a fair understanding of what is the real time benefit that sports can bring to grassroots in terms of community development and building children and youth in different facets of life, whether it is life skills or improving upon their self-learning and a variety of things that concerns to them. However, there was one pressing factor, is that while sports for social good is a great feel-good factor, but there are certain pressing needs in developing nations, especially like that of India, where jobs and employment is a big question mark. So unless you are not really gaining meaningful employment, it really means just very little. Yes, we are not demeaning the fact that sports leads to a lot of self-building and self-learning. But if the end result does not really end up with occupational benefit, it tends to lose its attraction. And that's how I attempted to first launch a skill development and training course, because the key factor is that to gain employment, you have to be reasonably trained. I launched this course in collaboration with Sports Education Development Australia, which was my joint venture partner. And in fact, my organization was one of the first ones to have drawn foreign direct investment. And we trained about 400 fitness trainers in Delhi and NCR region, and we provided 100% employment. Now, there were a set of challenges, which is a very long story, but to cut it short, you just navigate while you are developing the program, and there is so much of learning that happens on its own that something works and something does not work. So there were many quarters from where I did not receive any support. While there were some organizations, some individuals, some institutions who collaborated even without expectation. To support my entrepreneurial initiative, I used my core competence, which was in the knowledge sector, and I successfully managed to win 2 projects, one with the Government of India, which was into development of the national qualification standards. It's also called occupational standards for different job roles existing in sports, fitness, and recreation. And we conducted about 11 sports for employment conferences across the country, which was a huge, I would say, exposure to a lot of organizations, grassroots organizations, and private companies who are working in different parts of the country. And we tended to learn the pattern of employment that is existing in the country and where are the gaps. So this project was for about 2 to 3 years, which formed the basis of many of my present engagements. I have currently 3 active projects. One is with a Dutch company by the name of Sports Cloud International, where I am trying to use data analytics and develop a program which could be useful for companies and organizations in India. It's a very new concept for India because big data has been talked about, but we really don't know how to use it in the context of sports. The second is I manage a community school, which was actually a legacy of the Australian Asian Sports Partnership Program, where I was supported by the Government of Australia for 2 years to implement a program in collaboration with Boxing Australia and the University of Canberra. It was the implementation of modified boxing program that ran from 2016 to 18. And I was, and post that, one of the brilliant community schools, which is located in a hinterland, in a village in North India, turned out to be a fantastic experience, and I decided to continue my engagement with them. I won a small grant with the World Frisbee Federation, and I run Frisbee programs in this community school, which has 900 children, primarily from farming background, who have no access to sport. They don't even have a proper playground, no sports education teacher. And that is something which is a huge corporate social responsibility initiative that I'm running. And currently there are a couple of more knowledge-based programs that I'm incubating. And in the next about a year, I'm likely to launch a platform where various organizations and individuals in India can actually interact with each other and gain from the experiences that they have. And it can also be it will create an ecosystem where it's a sort of a virtual marketplace where you can actually gain from different participants and share the knowledge that is existing, which is a huge need in the country currently, because people are operating in their own silos and we hardly know of what's happening in the south or northeast. So there needs to be a virtual platform in this modern age where technology is a huge support to connect different interested people, like-minded people on a common platform. So that is what I've been doing. To finish my my initial talk, I think it's a roller coaster ride, but my simple understanding is that if if the understanding and the passion wasn't in place, I would have fallen back somewhere in the middle because the challenges are many. However, it's been on, and I think it will continue for the next few decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Reka. It was really very interesting and lots of projects you have in your hands. I just want to ask one question. Do I have a data of impact of all your projects on the communities? Do you monitor that?
Yes, we do monitor, especially the ones which are sport for development centric. And we have compiled reports for the last 4 years, and all of the reports are available on my website, rda.asia. And we are very strong in documenting what we do. That's because 4 years later, you land up in a situation where you really want to go back and see what was happening 4 years ago and where have you traveled so far. So unless you don't monitor your programs, it's very difficult to draw your path in future. And therefore, we have maintained an internal assessment of our own programs, and we follow strict rules in terms of documenting and monitoring our programs.
Perfect, great, thank you. We'll come back with more questions. Now we'll go the same questions for Rita Williams, former WNBA player, founder Elevate Sport Academy, and Rita traveled with us to Morocco for the exchange program. Hi, Rita, welcome. And please,
thank you for having me.
Hi, please tell us how you build your programs.
Well, just to give you my quick background, I played at UConn, so I got a scholarship to UConn, University of Connecticut, here in the States. Are anybody familiar with that program? Like the #1 program in the country? So that's the Huskies out here in the States. And then I was blessed enough to be able to play in the WNBA, where I was drafted to the Washington Mystics. And I played my career there for a couple of years, and then we expanded. There was the initial phase of the WNBA. I was one of the second year founders of the league, and I was drafted to the Indiana Fever in the expansion draft because it was an expansion year. And so I was an all-star with the Indiana Fever, and had a great experience there, played under some amazing coaches. And I had the opportunity to retire and be able to start my sports organization. But prior to doing that, once I retired, I went to work on Wall Street in New York. Definitely a far cry from basketball. Went from sneakers and sweats and shorts to heels and suits, and it was just definitely a different experience. So I worked there for 4.5 years and learned some valuable business information and experiences from being on Wall Street. And then I moved down to Atlanta, where I knew I wanted to get back into sports. And I created Elevate Sports Academy. And I started with 3 kids. I started with 3 kids. I didn't have a facility, and that's one of the biggest things that was very difficult. Was in order to start an organization, you have to have a facility to be able to house those programs that you're looking to build. And so I had some other former WNBA players that lived in Atlanta that were doing some coaching at schools, and they reached out to me to see if I wanted to get into coaching, and that led me to get into some coaching with high school, and I was able to utilize their facility to be able to coach and also continue with my sports academy. And so started with 3 players, and then I started training kids. That was my first thing I did, was started training kids at the school, and then it just became word of mouth that that I was training, and that people were really loving what I was doing with their kids, and the skill development that I was providing them. And so my program started to grow enough where I found an independent gym outside of the high school where I'm currently at now, in Brookhaven, Georgia, which I started back in 2013. So it's been 7 years now. Started with 3 kids, and now I'm over 250 kids. They're all blessings from God, for sure. Gotta give him all the glory for that. And I only started with training, and it was difficult at first, because some days you would get kids to come, and then some days it would be no kids. But the biggest thing was I had a facility that when they did come, I had somewhere for them to be able to come to a safe, fun environment in a great neighborhood where parents were okay with dropping them off and trusting me and my background to make sure that they were in a safe environment. And so from that, the word just spread. I didn't do any marketing initially. It was no marketing. It was all strictly word of mouth. And it started to spread fast in the community. And I just, one of the biggest things was, it was a lot of different organizations in the community, but I just chose to stay in my lane, and I didn't worry about what the next organization was doing, not trying to mimic anyone. I will look at what they were doing in the sense of how can I be better, but I just stayed my course and stayed on my path, and it just continued to grow. And so I just started building relationships with different coaches in the community, different businesses, and families. Actually, a lot of the families that are in our organization now also are business owners, so in that community. And so I get a lot of support from the city of Brookhaven. We've had the mayor of Atlanta come to visit our organization and watch games there as well. One of the biggest things for me with my sports academy was always about the sports, the integrity, character, and leadership of what I personally was doing for the kids. And then I wanted them to also understand that was the important thing for them to be able to be a part of my organization. So even though it was about training and skill development, I always had a vision for it to be more, but I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. So I just started small and just stuck with the training and skill development. And from there, we started to develop kids to the point where I'm not sure if, I know we have a lot of people from around the world, but we have here in the States, it's called travel basketball, which is also AAU basketball, where some of the top players get to compete in a lot of competitive games. So we were developing our kids to the point where we felt we were ready for that platform. And so we created under Elevate Sports Academy, the Huskies, which is a playoff of my college days. So we have the Huskies as our travel basketball team. And so we started that program. And from that program, we always do training no matter what, year round. And then we just started to try to piece together different things where we can provide different programs for our kids so that they can stay in our program year round. So what I started to do was do it by season. So each season, we always offered training, but we also offered a different program. So for winter, we have training, but we also have the Winter Basketball League, and that's for the winter season. And then we go to spring, which is training, and then also our travel basketball. And then fall, we have our 3-on-3 basketball league, which is now huge now in the States. It's huge in Europe and around the world, but the NBA is really, and the WNBA is really looking to go into that part of the game to make sure that kids are developing a lot of fundamentals from that area. So this is going to be our fourth year coming up doing that. And it's over 176 kids that participated in that last year. We started off with 32 kids. So within 4 years, we grew to that. So so we have that. And then we also we have an all-star game that we now do. We have a lot of different things that we do with our kids, and we'll continue to keep adding to our programs as we move along. And the State Farm and the Atlanta Hawks did a PSA and feature on our organization, and they promoted it nationally on their Twitter feed and their social media on their website. And we have been nominated for an Emmy. Our organization's been nominated for an Emmy for that PSA and feature that they did on our organization. And so with the Emmys, you have the main Emmys where you have like the celebrity shows and things of that nature. But then you have the regional Emmys where they go by region. And so we're nominated for a Southeastern Emmy because I'm based in Atlanta, which is a huge honor and blessing that people are recognizing what we're doing in the community with the kids, and so much more to offer that we are looking to do. We also started a nonprofit piece to it too, which is called More Than a Game Foundation. So that's another component that we add because we do so much more than just on the court stuff with our kids, because we want them to understand the business of sports as well, because everybody's not going to make it to the NBA or to play professionally. And so I don't want their dreams to end by saying, okay, well, I'm not going to play professionally, but let's give them another outlet to say, these are so many different things that you could do with sports, and you could still be a part of it throughout your life and build a career behind it. And so, and to wrap up, because I know we have other speakers, but our next phase right now, what we're doing is we are in a process of building a multi-sports complex here in Atlanta. So we're in our first pre-planned phase with that. And to start with 3 people and to talk about building a multi-sports complex, I would have never have thunk it. And like I said, I'm just blessed and thankful for it all. And I just want to thank Anna and Vlad for recognizing us and bringing us to Morocco. I see my guy from Tibu out here too. So I recognize some faces out here. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm just a resource for anybody here that I want to learn from you guys too, just as you want to learn from me. And I'm just here as a resource on the call and once we're done.
Amazing, Rita. How many things changed in the Elevate when we were there like 2 years ago? It's many, many things happening and very quickly. I'm really glad to hear that. And we will have lots of questions, I'm sure, and participants, and I will have, and Vlad will have, but now we'll go to introduce to our next speakers, and then we'll come back to all of you. Okay, our next speaker is Abigail Smith from University of Nottingham Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Management from UK, US. It depends where Abigail is now. Abigail, please tell a little bit about you and how you do your theses, your researches.
Yeah, hi, and thank you for having me today. And wow, I'm following 2 incredible women leading in this field. And congratulations, Rita, on your Emmy nomination. That's really exciting. So my background, I have grown up, I also played sport in college here in the US. I played lacrosse in college, and I've grown up in the lacrosse world. But I not until I was in college and I had the opportunity to go and coach lacrosse in Kenya, I was completely unaware of the sport for development side of sports. And that's when I started to recognize how powerful sports really are and the power they have to bring development to communities. So after I went to Kenya, I had another year left here in the US in college, and I started a program partnered with my university that was a free youth lacrosse program in partnership with my college, a local community center, and US Lacrosse. So something I really learned from that was just the power in partnerships, and I just reached out to as many people as possible, and the more people that I could get involved, the better the program grew. So then moving forward, after I graduated with a degree in marketing, now this past year, I've spent a year in England, and I really wanted to move to Europe to learn from the sport for development sector on that side of the world, because in the US we have sport-based youth development, which is obviously very impactful, but it's also very different than some of the organizations that you see around the rest of the world. So my main focus in studying abroad was learning what I can take from each sector to combine them and see the most effective styles of building a program. So last summer, before I started my master's degree, I had volunteered throughout Eastern Europe in Bulgaria, Romania, Kosovo, Croatia, and Serbia, running sport and play programs with an organization called World at Play. So I worked with a team of 9, and we went to all different marginalized communities, on refugee camps and Roma communities, feeding shelters and day centers for adults with disabilities, and ran and delivered different sport and play programs for 3 months. And then I had started my year in England. Now, it was really exciting to be able to learn the academic side of entrepreneurship and learn about theory and some of our greatest leaders in entrepreneurship. And one leader that I really love to learn from is Professor Muhammad Yunus, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for his invention of microcredit and the Grameen Bank. And he actually now has a program under him called Yunus Sports Hub, which I will talk a little bit more about as well. So during my time in England, I actually had a chance to go to Monaco in December and participate in the Investing in Youth program at the Peace and Sport Forum, which I encourage everyone to. I'm constantly looking. There's so many different young leaders programs in this field of sport for development, and there's more and more growing. So I can share some research sources for them as well, but I encourage everyone to constantly look for that. Sport and Dev is a good resource to find a lot of those. But anyways, a lot of my research this year focused on the building social businesses. So I really focused on how do we use the social impact side of nonprofits and the business and sustainability side of finance in a for-profit company to build a really effective program. And I learned that this is pretty common in some other fields, but in sport, we're a little bit behind and still a little grant dependent, but we're getting there, which is exciting. So I spent my year, and now I'm working on my thesis or business plan, researching how to add sustainability into sport for development programs, and how do we develop social business models. And I really thought it was interesting. I was living in England. Now I'm back in the US from when the pandemic started. So I've been here since April, but it was interesting to come home and start to research the US sport culture, because we're a $9.5 billion industry on the for-profit side of youth sports here. And then on the nonprofit side, we struggle to find funding for all of our organizations. So how do we bridge that gap? And that's kind of what my research is focused on lately. And I'm also working on a project, back to how I mentioned Professor Yunus, the father of social business and microcredit. Under him, he has Yunus Sports Hub. And I have had the opportunity to work with Yunus Sports Hub this summer as well. They're building centers in the Ivory Coast. There's sports centers made from self-sustainable recycled shipping containers that they've transformed to fill with social businesses within a sports center. So this center offers, it's in Abidjan, the capital of Ivory Coast, and they're developing a plan to build further centers all throughout the Ivory Coast and then hopefully through Africa. So it's been a really exciting project to work on and to really learn the ins and outs of social business. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm still excited to continue to learn about sustainability and social business within youth sports, and I hope that can share a little bit of insight on how I've gotten to where I am. And I just wanted to echo something that Rita said at the end of her speech, is that she mentioned she's really excited to learn from everyone else on the call, as am I. I've already learned so much from everyone who spoke before me, and I'm excited to learn from everyone who's here now and connect with all of you.
Thank you, Abigail. Now we'll go to our next speaker, Marvin Asimba from Uganda. He's the director, Kids for Africa Sports Academy. Hi, Marvin, welcome. And hi, okay. Hi. So please tell us everyone a bit about you and your programs and how you do there.
Wow, hi everyone. I'm so grateful to be here today, and I'm so impressed to see all these boxes on the laptop at the moment. It's really so much exciting to see you all. My name is Asimwe Marvin, and I'm born, raised in Uganda, that is East Africa. So basically, briefly, I was when I was growing up, I grew up so much from a sports perspective, whereby I used to play soccer in my young age. However, my family supported me so much to play soccer and also to focus so much on education, because when you talk about education, we are talking about two key points of development, because when we are looking at development, we have to be having an educated mindset somehow, somewhere. So, but basically in 2009, I came into a system whereby I witnessed many of my peers getting involved in drug addiction, drug abuse, and most of them lost formal education. They became young parents. And with the girls that I used to school with, of course, they went into early marriages and they became young mothers. For the boys, they became young fathers. So they started their hardship at the little age. So this was so much common in my community where I grew up in. And so everyone was taking his own life at his own way he wanted when you were just a young child. So no one is just maybe even giving you direction somehow, somewhere. So it's you to be the driver of your own life. When you press the accelerate pedal, of course, you accelerate anywhere you want to go. So, but being so much involved with sport and soccer, I came to identify that there are some important aspects that we don't have to pass our eyes on. And we have to really think beyond the box about how best sports, I'll just categorize like as soccer, changes someone's life from thinking differently to thinking positively or in a very leadership way. So principles like unity, principles like discipline, principles like safety with drugs, and principle like like setting goals, like becoming a goal achiever. These are some of the things that we used to look at. And so in 2009, I came to develop an idea whereby I wanted to develop an organization whereby I could create direction for at-risk children in my community to get involved in sport, but as a direction to focus them on leadership and becoming responsible citizens of our country and making them the very best of themselves, or trying to, what I can mean is that expanding their capabilities and choices, and also making informed choices about their lives. So this was a turning point in 2009. And this is how I started Kids for Africa Sports Academy. So I started with 9 boys, and I was looking at what can I use as a key cluster of engagement. And here came the answer, and it was soccer. So it was sport. So sport was a key factor whereby I could engage the kids from my community to what I was thinking was the best way. So in the middle of us, so we were connecting, like they come for trainings and everything, but we had also what we call the character development. and mental peak. So we used to give them motivational lessons, and also trying to teach them about what we don't want and what we think is right and what we think is not right with their lives at the tender age. So this is how we started Kids for Africa Sports Academy. But sport, like soccer, was the key point of engagement, and this is what was connecting us with the kids and with the coaches and with the organization. So we came with soccer, and I started with 9 boys in February 2009. So, but the organization went on growing, and we have registered, at the moment we have registered over 500 children from different locations of Uganda. They have come to join the story of hope. So we went on to also think about that we don't want to leave out the girls, because in all aspects of life, we are with the girls. So we had to bridge up this gap whereby different people, different mindsets locally in our country, they think that sport is only majorly for boys. So when I see a girl playing sport, of course they have to be like, oh, really? Is it right? Come on. So this is, they think so much that girls are just built to become housewives and to become mothers, or else to be in the kitchen. But it's not the case. This is 2020, so the mind and the world is growing very fast. So we came up to initiate a girls nation program, whereby we're aiming to empower the girls. We're aiming to give the girls the voice and the platforms for them to showcase that we can also do this. It's not all about being in the kitchen and becoming housewives, but we can also play. So we came up with a Girls Nation program, and this was aimed to empower the girls and give them a voice, bridge up gender, bringing up gender equity and equality. And we have successfully achieved. We started with few girls, and now we are all over top, like 50 girls are all joining the program every month. So they play netball. Netball is like basketball, but through netball, they are getting opportunities like education, like scholarships. They are getting opportunities like to showcase their talents. They are getting opportunities to get to know more about their bodies. For example, we provide hygiene kits, whereby within the hygiene kits, we're providing sanitary napkins that can help them to play even if they're in monthly cycles, things like that. They get shoes, they get attires which they can use so that they can feel safe on the ground, on the field. So we come up to open up their minds in such a way of the sports area. So with all this, we also thought, and we also did needs assessments in our community, and we were like, okay, if we can play, but how best can we play at the same time we can be clean? So we went on to find out that the community wells were in the bad shape. So we went on to construct 2 community wells, of which they have benefited over 700 families in our community. So we play, and then we have clean and safe drinking water that we can use for food. At the same time, we can use for washing our clothes after the trainings. So this is how Kids for Africa went on to become a milestone, went on to become a dream of my life, that I want to push this at least so that it can future the next 100 years to come. So we never stopped on this. So we went on to expand our reach, and we went on up to Eastern Uganda, far deep in the villages, whereby there is a community that was evicted from its lands by the government in 1999. And until now, it has not been settled. So they are just becoming refugees in their own country. So we have come out to reach out to them to see that we can at least extend the little we have, and we share with them in a sports fraternity, whereby this is a region whereby the famous long distance runners in Uganda come from. So it's just deep into the mountains. But this community, they are around something like over 1,000 families. They are living on 2-acre space of land, of which it's house per house, house per house, house per house. There is no level of sanitation. There's no level where they have even unimproved pit latrine where they can go to dump their waste, things like that. So they are just in the admins of suffering. So girls are being raped when they go to work on people's farms. so that they can register something to eat back home. Children, the boys have to go to the forest to hunt wild fruits and food so that they can bring back to the elders. So we came up to initiate a program with them, and we call this program like We Are Running for Hope. So since athletics is a major sport in their area, so we are using athletics as a key engagement with this community. And we go on to into areas like education, where we focus so much on like we go deep into up to the classes where these kids go. Like we send their volunteers, they teach, they empower them, they facilitate the skills on how even girls have to make self-defense of themselves if something happens, like for example in the midst of the forest. So we go on to give out food to their schools so that they can have lunch to their schools, so that they don't go on to the forests to hunt the fruits and everything. So this is how Kids for Africa is built on. So we are having three core aspects of our work, that is sport, health, and education. And this is where we are pioneering to see that we can also we are looking at something like becoming more sustainable so that we can future in the next years to come. So we are having a big project running. It's it's called Raising from Dust to Grass. So this project is meant to construct a sustainable high school whereby we want to extend free education opportunities to children. And we are looking at establishing a sports complex whereby we are having different kinds of sports. And we are also looking at having a hospital there, and also having obtaining agriculture, because agriculture is the bedroom of our economy. So it's like the backbone. So we want to use the agriculture part of it to sustain the village or to sustain the school. So because we don't want so much to like, okay, it's sport, but we wanna go in sport, we play, we study, but at the same time we acquire different extra skills, whereby once a child graduates from the project or from the academy, he can be in position to run his own or her life without our assistance. So these are some of the skills that we want to give out, like agriculture skills. So they can grow their own food. They can plant, they can harvest, they can gain their own money, they can come to play sport. So this is the sustainable model ahead of our business, like our sports enterprise that we want to build. And we are having the aim of acquiring something like 30 acres of land. And so far we have achieved 8. So we are still having more 22 to go. So, but in this, we are looking at giving the child a chance whereby once he graduates in the academy, he can be in position to lead the other group. He can be in position to inspire other children out there. He can be in position to tell his story, and he can be in position to lead a life of self-reliance. But we're all looking at this to use sport as our key engagement with the community, with the children, and with also the outside people. So I'm so much thankful to be here to share this. I've passed through different programs. I've passed through Aspire Academy from Qatar. I've been engaged with Vision 21 from Nairobi, Kenya. I've been engaged with Uganda Youth Football Association here. I'm a university graduate in development studies, so much working with marginalized groups of people. And I'm also a certified youth soccer coach. I'm qualified in with leadership coaching and mental aptness. So actually, I'm having the qualities somehow, somewhere. I won't say so much, but I'm so thankful to share these perspectives with you and share our dream sports enterprise and business model with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marvin. It's very interesting and amazing what you do for the kids in Uganda, giving them chances, giving them hopes to dream big. Thank you very much, and we'll come back to you. And our next speaker is Carolina Paul from Brazil. She's a businesswoman and expert in women's football, which I'm very excited to have Carolina here. Hi, Carolina.
Hi everyone, and hi, thank you, Anna. And I'm really nervous here, okay, and it's hard to me to speak in English.
Yeah, come on, we're just friends here talking to you.
Thank you, thank you.
More relaxed.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the invitation to share a little bit of my experience with sports and also to learn with all of you. I have been an athlete all my life, first with swimming and then with football. And since I was 14, I've tried different paths in high performance level, and both locally and internationally. And many times I faced the gender inequality in football. From here, prejudice words in the field, and to play without being paid. And at some point, I changed my role as a player and started to work behind the scenes. I've worked at Women's Handball World Championships, and then I worked at the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Rio 2016. And after that, I decided to work exclusively with women's football. And I've re-entered the university to study sports. I did many courses, and I worked in a football school just for girls. Then I finally felt prepared to open a business called Soul Sports with my partner Benito Pedassi, and another passionate about football. And the main purpose of our company is to seek gender equality, in accordance with one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. The center pillars that brought our company together are the gender equality purpose, a good knowledge of global football system and its laws like FIFA, CONMEBOL, CBF, and strategic and adaptable business plan. And last but not least, our partners and community, which share the same values and vision that we do. One of the first challenges that we faced was creating a sustainable business model, financially speaking, and for all of those involved in Soul Sports. We had many ideas to start running the company, but we choose the one that better combined financial stability with our social goal, which ended up being taking care of a women's football career. We did not give up on other services, but it was by choosing this one that we managed to do other things. The market of agents and players is already structured, and choose to work only with women was our differential. One of the things that I like to mention is that not everyone that come to us have a sustainable proposal or a suitable proposal for what we do. But one of our jobs is to find a way to connect these people with the field that we work. In these 3 years with Soul Sports, we have revisited our strategic plan many times, and we were always evolving and creating new solutions for the problems that arise. I believe that working in a company with a social purpose is essentially facing challenges and rebuilding aspects of society that needed to be changed. In this sense, I think that a sustainable company is not incompatible with social entrepreneurship. In our case, it's including mandatory, and it's the way that we found to make this engine turn all the way around. And a second challenge was related to dimension of the market itself. And we weren't able to work alone because it demanded a lot of specific knowledge in different areas, such as legal one, marketing, press, social media, accounting, among others. And hence, our first mission was to search for partners that were aligned with our purpose and that believe in our company. And this was the way that we found to solve this issue. And we know there are many other possibilities, such as donation, governmental support, international organization support, ambassadors, and etc. And speaking of ambassadors, we ourselves have Renata Capobianco. There is international career player. Sorry, it's a former football player with an international career that help us to divulge our soul sports worldwide. And with this much of people involved, we created our community by sharing this vision and providing those who are interested in the opportunity to work with women's football to be with us. So I know it's hard to beginning, but I think it's possible. And I think it's what I'm just like talking a little bit our background, and I'm open to answer any question. Thank you for the space, and thank you for all the other speakers. I really learned a lot here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Carolina. And we have one unannounced and very surprised speaker that now we'll introduce. She is 2 times World Cup medalist, 2 times Olympic gold medalist, former US national team player. We have Brandi Chastain here with us, and she will tell us a little bit about her experiences. And she has a lot, as Carolina said, football for girls is not equal yet, and it's they fought very long, like starting from Brandi's generation, and we are still talking and fighting about gender equality in sport. So let's hear a little bit from Brandi. Brandi, welcome.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate you putting me on the spot. This is exactly what sport is all about, right? I guess being agile and flexible and, you know, learning to deal with new situations. So first and foremost, thank you, Anna and Vlad, for just the platform in general to put people together, to share what seems like similar ideas from around the world. I guess what I would share this morning in an impromptu talk would be just a little bit about myself, and then how the stories of what I've heard that you're saying in different places really are meaningful, and how it's shaped me. And so my name is Brandi Chastain. I'm from San Jose, California. I grew up in what is now considered the Silicon Valley, and I was one of 2 children in my family. I have a younger brother, and I say that because in the late 60s, early 70s, girls were not really encouraged to participate in sports. But I was very fortunate to live in a community where I think my parents felt empowered to encourage me to do what it was that I was passionate about. And I saw my mother, what Rita said really resonated with me, because she said she had to put on a suit and go to work. And this is what I saw my mother do every day in an environment where, like, Asamoah was saying that, women don't just have to have a certain career. And so she kind of broke a mold of what I thought women could do. And so I think because I saw that every day, seeing myself in sport was easier. So I think what Reka said earlier is you don't need to know everything. You can learn as you're going, but it is important to know your sector and know who it is you want to encourage and to uplift. And if you know that, then I think the pathway can be a little bit clearer. I think also, like Rita, I was given a chance to express myself through sports, as a collegiate athlete, as then a professional athlete here in the US in the first ever women's professional league, the WUSA, which only lasted 3 years, but it was very influential because it changed the pathway of my life. And in so that I knew that I had to continue to give back to young girls in a way that was meaningful, and maybe not in a professional capacity in terms of them becoming professional athletes, but in a nonprofit way in the place where they lived, which is on the playgrounds of their schools. And so along with our former general manager and one of my former teammates on the US women's national team, Julie Foudy, we began a nonprofit called the Bay Area Women's Sports Initiative. And we started with 11 girls, and we've since reached over 20,000 girls on playgrounds in our communities. And that's started in 2005. So the fact that we've been around this long, I think says a few things. One, there's need. Two, there's people who, like yourselves, want to fill the need. And three, there are so many girls in communities across our country and across the world that need us. So I think what Abigail was talking about is, because we have this disproportionate relationship with youth sports as a $9.5 billion. I didn't know that number, Abigail. Wow, that's impressive, or sad at the same time. Disproportionate relationship for those who can afford to play sports and those who can't afford to play sports. It is immensely critical that we find ways to have the for-profit sector influence the nonprofit sector and the volunteer areas to give back and to share the wealth of experience and knowledge. I think staying engaged at this time for our nonprofit is very difficult because of COVID. Our communities have been kind of in a lockdown, and schools are no longer going to be functioning as they have been in the past. So we've attempted to help those in our community still by engaging with Zoom calls like this, and becoming pen pals. And so, I think ultimately what I want to finish with in this brief moment that Anna has put me in is to say two final things. One, stay creative and stay resilient, because young girls in your communities and communities across the world need us. Whether it's, fighting a Wi-Fi challenge, or, internet connection challenge, or space challenge, or facility challenge, we have to stay resolute in finding solutions. And personally, I have taken on something that is outside of sport for the first time in my life in 35 years, and I've joined the tech sector, as a regular working person. So I am using all the experiences that I've had in sport and all the ones that you're talking about. You are going to create someone like myself who is ultimately confident enough to say, I don't know everything, but I do know some things, and I have confidence in my head, and I have passion in my heart, and I'm going to try something new for the first time. And so I want you to know that what you're doing is incredibly impactful and will make a difference. I loved hearing and seeing Marvin Essenway's smile about, encouraging young girls to do something that others aren't expecting them to do. And so I think if we continue this support system that we're creating where we are, it will influence them to, when they turn my age of a young 52, to have the determination and the guts to go ahead and give it a try. So to all of you, thank you so very much for what you're doing for your communities. And I keep saying for young girls, but I think also what you're doing is you're shifting the paradigm of what society should look like and what it should behave like. And I think that is the byproduct of what you're directly doing. And so there is mutual benefits that are happening at the same time. So please do not stop your quests and your journeys, and let's continue to have these conversations to empower change. So thank you.
Thank you, Brandi, for joining and being flexible to talk. It's always inspiring to hear from you. So I'm sure that our participants like that. Thank you very much. And I'll go back to Vlad.
Amazing surprise, Brandi. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being such a good friend. A few things. I think that it is very important. I'm sure you're already doing it to watch and to look at the chat room. It's absolutely fascinating. The wealth of experience, the sharing, the networking that is going on in the chat. You know that the conference is usually it is as much fun to be on the hallways than it is to be during the conference itself. Here, we have the benefit of amazing talks, but at the same time, what is going on in the chat room is really inspiring and fascinating. So great talks. Thanks to all speakers. We have probably roughly another 20-25 minutes to go through this, and that's the reason. I would like to kind of consolidate a couple of questions and go maybe one more time through the list of speakers. So there's a question that Megan from the Special Olympics asked, and it was about reaching out to marginalized communities and how do you accomplish that? And in conjunction to this, there's a question from Ibrahim from Bangladesh, who asked about innovations that you implemented or innovations that you saw implemented by others in the context of COVID-19. So these are kind of the two questions. You could pick and choose whatever you want to do, maybe for the next 10-15 minutes, and then we'll go to Ryan Murphy from the State Department to see if he has any question. And again, our hope is that you are going to be connecting through this chat room. So please continue to list your addresses and contact information. So let's try with this question. And maybe Rika, you could start, and then maybe the other ones, whoever wants to answer.
Yeah. So as far as the COVID-19 situation is concerned, in India, it has been a very strict lockdown for 3 months, and it has certainly disrupted outdoor activities and sports. So there is actually not much of innovation that has taken place, but people have started thinking of how to get back, and schools are not reopening until September. So we are in a state of, we're just bearing patience, because there's nothing much that can be done, because India is at close to 2 million infections. And that's a very serious situation where kids certainly cannot be put to risk. So we are just waiting to get back with some development work until early next year. And there's not much groundwork happening. Vlad, can you please repeat the second question, which was
the second question was about reaching out to marginalized communities.
Oh yeah. So That is certainly a very big challenge, and the way in which I can quote my example. I have taken the route of community sports coaches and developing them, because it is from the community who you can have people with you and train them for further program delivery purposes. And the best way it works is that you have to have local people in your team who can interact with the locals and use the language. India is a country with many states, many languages. So there are various, I would say, challenges that we face. But it is pretty doable if you have your strategy in place. You exactly know where the need is, and we have integrated innovative solutions around environment, because the place where I implemented my most recent program was in the Himalayas, and this is an ecologically fragile area, and therefore we thought of integrating a lot of environment sustainability initiatives with kids, and it was very much possible with the help of community sports coaches. So locally, to reach out to marginalized communities, it is important to build that training and competence within the local people who we select with a careful, I would say, the kind of skills that we need, and then go about program implementation.
Okay, so let's see. Other maybe Carolina, do you have any thoughts about these two questions, or one of them at least?
One thing I'd like to mention is first about the innovations. We had a lot of work online with our athletes to keep them unmotivated doing their jobs, and trying to intermediate these relations with the clubs, and to looking for opportunities even in this situation. And talking about this people that need to reach these opportunities, we try to construct a big community in different fields in women's sports. So if we can't help someone that reach us, we can direct it to somebody else or to some organization or project that can help. So we try to at least orientate everyone that reach us. So it's one way that we try to help people that are interested in women's football in many places, like from the player to the person that is that wants to help or work with it and everything. So I think it's a way that we find to help these situations.
Yeah, it seemed that he might have lost Marvin. He said that he has some kind of a connection problem. What about Rita? Rita, any thoughts about these questions?
Which question would you like about the marginalized communities?
And also reaching out to marginalized communities through your program.
Yeah. So I'm from the inner city, and I know how important it is to be able to have opportunities with people, to be able to have different opportunities, and opportunities, different experiences and opportunities for young kids from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different cultural backgrounds. Like, it's important for me to be able to be have a program of diversity, and it's important for me to teach kids that this is some people who are able to afford it. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to participate in sports, because there are kids who cannot participate either through not being able to afford it, transportation because parents are working, single parent families. So it's always important for me to be able to teach that to kids so they also understand that. But I think that I know that I'm a big advocate for youth sports, because you learn so much from sports, from leadership skills, character development, and learning how to treat people. And I think what the biggest thing for me is basketball and sports is the thing that brings us together, and learning about each other is the bigger picture of it all. right? Because look, we have different people on the call right now from different backgrounds, and we're all looking to connect with each other and understand what everybody is doing in their countries.
Let's see, Marvin might be back. At least I see his video. Marvin, if you could hear me. So the question is about reaching out to marginalized communities. You touched on that during your presentation. If you want to add anything in the context of COVID-19, if it impacted your work, and if some creative solutions were found, during this testing time. Marvin.
Wow, thank you so much. So I'll start with COVID. So this caught us with a surprise. I'll mention that. We were so surprised, at the same time we were shocked, and at the same time it was heartbreaking. Most of our work is working with marginalized communities, less privileged and vulnerable people. So when we base on the economy of Uganda and how these people sustain their living, of course, they are working for what we call the daily bread. So when I talk about the daily bread, is that what they work for is what they consume. So their hope for them to restate tomorrow or the other day is that it has to be through their sweat and hard work. So COVID-19 came with positive impacts in the way how we have to organize ourselves as people, think beyond the box, and how we have to maintain our financials mostly, because it captures the area of the financial aspect. But on the negative side of it, it brought what we call food insecurity in our communities. Our people down the road, for example, currently we are running an emergency food relief preparedness with COVID, and we are giving out food to the less fortunate people or families in our project. And so far we have given out to over 200 families. We're trying to facilitate them with food because they don't have what they have to eat. So it's bringing food insecurity in the eyes of the poor Ugandans. And it's so sad that we cannot help everyone or reach out to everyone, but the best you can is what we can share with as well. So I'll dearly thank the organizations that have come up with and the individuals and contributors. That's the Link Foundation from Canada, the Game in the World, and many other contributors. Our board of directors that has been working hand in hand because they have been in position to solicit this food, and these families have been fed for a month. So this is what COVID brings, because our people cannot work, because they are working, most of them are street vendors, they're working in markets, they are working in malls, or what we call shopping arcades. So all these things are in lockdown. All these things are locked up. So you cannot go there to work. You cannot stand on the street to sell, even if it's just a mere sandal. So of course you have to stay at home. And it came up with measures like curfew, of which the Ugandan government is enforcing it, but the security organs are misinterpreting it, of which they are, it's like brutal arrests and imprisonment without trial. So the more you want to come out from your comfort zone to do something for your family, you may end up in prison, and there is no court trial that you can maybe talk about yourself or try to resist somehow somewhere like in courts of law. So it's a different topic here when it comes to COVID. However, the government has tried to ease it up, but not all. So the most vulnerable communities is still suffering. So when we come out, how best we reach out to our communities or the marginalized people in our communities? One, we are following what we call our core values. We are having transparency, we are having cultural sensitivity, we are having compassion, and we are having integrity. So before we start up anything like a project, we have to first be passionate about what we are going to do. We do what we call needs assessments. We do what we call transact works. We do what we call community mappings. And we also, we do what we call, so it's like we identify whom can be suitable to reach out to before the other. So all these 4 key points, they reflect in what we call the research topic or the research results. So it gives us the opportunity for us to tap into a community whereby we know whom to reach out to, whom is gonna be our translator, who's gonna put us in front of the people or the kids, and how best are we gonna engage. So we do all this so that we can emphasize what we call the participatory approach, because it's our people or the beneficiaries have to participate in all levels of development or in all levels of benefiting them. They have to know how the project is gonna move, how is it gonna benefit them, and how best is it gonna be monitored or evaluated. On the other hand, it also helps us that when it comes to essence of evaluation, it's like the beneficiaries also help us in the evaluation that, for example, they for themselves, they even identify the challenges availing the project. And they are keen enough, they are open enough to tell you this and this and this is not going right according to the way we planned. So we put participation, or what we call the participatory approach, on the forefront of every project when we are reaching out to the community.
Thank you. That's fascinating. So let's go quickly to Abigail. Any thoughts about this reaching out to marginalized communities based on what you observed for the thesis? Very quickly, because we are almost running out of time.
Yeah. And also just a quick comment on the COVID innovations. I participated in a really cool project that we did with Eunice Sports Hub. We built an entire global community of leaders and young leaders and Olympic athletes who we ran regional calls every week and developed solutions to local community problems. So that was kind of an interesting way to bring a global approach to a regional and local perspective to come up with global solutions and then implement them in our own local communities, which bridges into the other question of approaching marginalized communities. And I kind of can bring like more of a top-down perspective from the organizations that I've worked with. And it's been really important when developing these strategies from a top-down perspective that we approach communities with partnerships and use people who are involved in the communities and have developed relationships within the communities instead of trying to bring a blanket solution to any community. It's been really important that we find effective partnerships.
Thank you, Abigail. Anna?
Thank you, everybody. And I want to introduce our program officer from Sports Diplomacy, Ryan Murphy, in the end. Ryan?
Hello, everyone. So once again, thank you, Anna and Vlad and World Learning for putting on such a great webinar. Such a unique topic. It's one that we see quite a bit within our programming. Sports and entrepreneurship go hand in hand. One really leads to the other. And as Vlad talked about earlier, some of the earlier programs we've done together in Colombia and in other countries have really had such an impact on the underserved, underprivileged communities there. So again, just wanted to thank all the panelists for taking their time to talk today. I wanted to there was one quote that Rita had made earlier, that how she really started the organization small, and it wasn't just about kind of the skill development, but it was about developing the person and developing the player and making it more than just skill development. And that's really why we do these programs. It's really to give youth in particular, but also adults as well as others in the sports community, the opportunities and the tools to be a better person and to really impact their communities through the programming that they do. And all of your talks today and all of your examples have been a great example of that. So from the U.S. Department of State and the Sports Diplomacy Division, again, thank you all for taking the time today to listen in on this and share your impacts. And as Vlad said, I've been monitoring the chat, and there's been some great topics and great conversation going on there. So it's great just to bring people together, especially during these times when we're reliant more on these platforms rather than the in-person people-to-people exchanges that we can do. So thank you all for taking the time today.
Thank you, Ryan. We could continue this discussion for a very, very long time, and the chat is a proof of that. And the good news of all this is that we'll continue. We'll continue with the webinars, probably even beyond this difficult period that we are all part of at this point, because there are very useful ways to get together globally and discuss these very important topics. Next week, actually 2 weeks from now, we'll continue with the webinar on women football. So I hope Brandi is still with us. Definitely a few people here, if not all of you, are very happy for this topic. So this is going to be our next topic. One thing I would like to acknowledge before finishing, with the hope that you are going to stay in touch and you are going to continue networking and even come up with ideas for future webinars, and we can continue this amazing discussion. I would like to acknowledge, at the end of this, the tragedy yesterday in Lebanon. We had a program, we exchange program, 2 or 3 years ago, from Lebanon. Amazing coaches and kids, and since the explosions yesterday, we've tried to reach out to them. We heard from most of them, so most of them seem to be fine. But you all saw the news, and you saw the kind of the dimension of this tragic occurrence, and how much support and care the population of Lebanon, including people involved in sports and young people, need these days. And so I was hoping to actually get one of the participants in the webinar, say a few words, but unfortunately he just wrote to me on WhatsApp that there was a fire in his city, which is not Beirut, is nearby. Imam is from Lebanon. So let's say, with the risk of taking a couple of minutes, Imam, so tell us a little bit about what is going on. And again, our condolences, and we are so sorry for what is going on. So Imam, could you say a few words?
Hello, everyone.
Are you in Beirut?
Well, no, I'm near Beirut. I'm like 25 minutes away from Beirut. Well, I'm still under shock. I'm still angry, still sad. We still don't know what to say about it. Everything is still unclear. We still need time to get over this, but we are just so mad from everything that's going on.
Yeah, to process. So again, just know that we're all with you. We are all supporting you, and our hope is that we'll have more programs in Lebanon, and we just, I hope you know that we are really caring about you, and so impressed, so by the size. So thanks for saying good luck, and I hope that things are going to move into a better direction soon. Considering the fact that there is a tragedy, so many people dead, so many people injured, and the Beirut, the capital, the beautiful Beirut, is basically destroyed. So we're very, very sorry for that. I'm glad, and I'm grateful that you're part of this. So that being said, again, thanks so much for everybody who participated in this webinar. Speakers, Abigail, Carolina, Marvin, Rita, and our surprise, Brandi. We are going to see you soon, a couple of weeks, for the webinar on women football. Amazing topic. I'm very grateful for my co-moderator, who's also the head of the executive committee on women's football in Armenia, Anna. Also our team at World Learning, Aaron, Lake, and Laurel, Digital Communication Network. To remind you that this was the World Learning Digital Communication Network webinar, part of the sports initiative of the Sports Diplomacy Division of the US Department of State. So please stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vlad. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
I look forward to connecting with everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
Keep up the good work, Rita.
Abigail, good job. Awesome way, everybody. I don't know who's still on, but continue the good work.
Thank you.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Brandy, I
Bye-bye.
just saw Brandy.
Everyone.
Guys, please connect with me. I know that Vlad, you're sending stuff out, right? Connect emails and contacts. Okay.
Emails, he'll send out, Anna said that
Okay.
she's going to download the chat, so that one is going to be available. We'll follow up with a wrap up of this webinar, kind of a written form and YouTube recording. So yeah, and you'll we'll stay connected. You want it or you don't want it. You
Okay,
don't
thank
you. Yeah. So thanks again.
you. Okay.